While opposition parties were preoccupied with resolving internal conflicts, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was strategically and methodically positioning himself to sideline them ahead of the elections. Rather than engaging in public spat or reacting to every accusation, he appeared to focus on consolidating power quietly and decisively. As rival factions battled over leadership disputes, candidate selections, and ideological differences, Tinubu concentrated on strengthening party structures, reinforcing alliances, and tightening his grip on key political institutions. By the time opposition figures began to regroup, much of the political landscape had already shifted. The release of the revised timetable by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for the general election has introduced significant new compliance requirements for the political parties. Under the updated schedule, parties are required to submit comprehensive digital records of their membership by 2nd April 2026. In addition, party primaries are slated to take place between April 2026 and 30th May 2026. This timeline effectively gives opposition parties weeks, not months, to compile, verify, and digitize their full membership databases. The logistical and technical demands of meeting these requirements, especially for parties without robust digital infrastructures, pose a serious challenge. Failure to comply with the digital submission deadline could have far-reaching consequences. Any party unable to meet the requirement risks being barred from fielding candidates in the election, fundamentally reshaping the competitive landscape ahead of the polls. This is not a routine warning. It is not a neutral corrective mechanism designed to strengthen internal party compliance. It is in effect an elimination clause. By mandating that parties submit fully digitized membership records within an extremely compressed time frame, the Independent National Electoral Commission has created a threshold that many smaller or less technologically equipped opposition parties like ADC may struggle to meet. It is not a reprimand, it is not a procedural adjustment, it is outright disqualification from feeding candidates. When compliance deadlines carry existential consequences, particularly under tight timelines, the policy shifts from administrative regulation to political gatekeeping. The practical impact is clear. Those unable to scale quickly enough risk being removed from the ballot altogether. Please, before we continue, I want to make a passionate appeal. 96% of people who view this channel are not subscribed to this channel. When you subscribe to Impact Media, it helps you to push this channel to other viewers. Please support Impact Media by subscribing and liking this video. Thank you for your understanding. Let's continue. Every opposition party has now been instructed to comply with the new directives issued by the Independent National Electoral Commission, and they have been given under 8 weeks to digitally capture and submit the biodata of potentially millions of its members. For most political parties, particularly those with limited financial capacity and without access to federal-level institutional backing, this requirement presents an even steeper challenge. Unlike a governing party like the APC that may already have structured databases, coordinated state machinery, and stronger funding pipelines, many opposition platforms operate on lean budgets. They rely heavily on volunteer networks, fragmented state chapters, and manual record-keeping systems. To suddenly transition from largely analog or decentralized membership structures to a fully digitized, verified, and centrally submitted database within weeks is not merely an administrative adjustment. It is a structural strain. In addition, this is where the narrative takes a far more troubling turn. Long before the new compliance demands became public flashpoints, long before opposition parties began scrambling to interpret the implications, the All Progressives Congress has already quietly set the machinery in motion. As far back as February 2025, The ruling party had commenced a nationwide digital registration of its members, systematically capturing data, structuring records, and building a centralized database. While rivals were entangled in internal disputes, leadership crises, and fragile coalition talks, the groundwork was already being laid elsewhere. By the time the regulatory deadline resurfaced, the APC was not reacting, it was prepared, nearly a full year ahead of the curve. That timeline raises serious political questions. Was this foresight? Was this strategic planning? Or evidence of privileged awareness of an impending regulatory shift? Whatever the interpretation, the effect is undeniable. When the clock started ticking publicly, one party had already done the homework. If the ruling party had already begun building a comprehensive digital membership database long before the requirement was formally announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, it raises an obvious political question. How did they prepare for a requirement that was not yet publicly known? Preparation itself is not illegal. Strategic foresight is not wrongdoing. But when one party appears institutionally ready for a compliance hurdle that others are scrambling to understand, the optics become deeply political. Another layer to this debate is legislative control. The Electoral Act, the very legal framework empowering the Independent National Electoral Commission to set compliance requirements, was debated and passed in the National Assembly, where the ruling All Progressive Congress (APC) commands a majority. The lightning speed which the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed the electoral bill made it painfully clear that the opposition had meticulously planned every move, yet the machinery of power was already one step ahead. This is the chilling use of state power to declare an election's outcome before the first vote is even cast, a preemptive maneuver that turns democracy into a staged performance, leaving opposition parties scrambling while the ruling party moves with ruthless precision. This explains the unfolding political exodus. Seasoned politicians who dedicated years, sometimes decades, painstakingly building party structure in the PDP and Labour Party are now abandoning ship, drawn like moths to a flame towards the APC. What was once loyalty and long-term investment in their parties has given way to a relentless scramble for survival and influence, leaving a trail of weakened opposition in their wake. The reason behind this mass defection is clear. The APC's and Tinubu's power as the ruling party acted like a magnet, pulling politicians away from the parties they had loyally served for years. What once seemed like unshakable loyalty gave way to the temptation of influence, resources, and the chance to be on the winning side. One by one, long-time party builders abandoned their old homes, leaving their parties weaker while the APC grew stronger. Part of the reason for this mass defection may have been the warning signs these politicians received about the impending Electoral Act and its consequences. Facing a law that could tilt the playing field, they chose to abandon the parties they had long served and rush towards the APC, the party already in power. What was once loyalty gave way to survival and strategy as seasoned politicians hedged their bets to stay relevant in a rapidly changing political landscape. The new Electoral Act has fundamentally reshaped the rules of political engagement by abolishing delegates voting, ensuring that only digitally registered party members can cast their votes in primaries. On the surface, this appears to streamline the process, giving parties the option to present a consensus candidate. Yet in practice, among politicians, ambitious, contentious, and fiercely protective of their power, forcing a consensus is far from straightforward. What might seem like unity on paper often conceals rivalries, secret alliances, and calculated moves behind closed doors. History repeatedly shows that when there are such high stakes, compromises are imposed, the very fabric of the party can tear, factions can emerge, and loyalties fracture, and what was intended as a show of cohesion risks spiraling into a full-blown internal implosion, leaving the party weaker and divided at the moment it should be strongest. In effect, the act does not just regulate voting, it ignites a power keg of ambition and intrigue, setting the stage for battle that could define the party's future. The ADC has strongly reacted to this development, outrightly rejecting the new INEC timetable. They argue that the compressed timescale is wholly insufficient for proper preparation, highlighting a glaring double standard. The ruling party has been aware of these requirements for nearly a year, yet opposition parties are now expected to scramble at the last minute. For the ADC, this isn't just a scheduling issue, it underscores the systemic advantage enjoyed by those already in power, turning what should be a level playing field into high-stakes contest, tilted from the start. What do you make of this story? Share your thoughts in the comment section. This is Impact Media. I will see you again in the next video. Thank you.